coming out for the 2018 reorganization of West Goshen Township. I'd first like everyone to stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce that the audience members may be audio or video recorded by third parties during this public meeting. I'd like to move to number 2 on the agenda, actually, announcement to silence all cell phones. If you would have them, please. Thank you. I think we should proceed with the swearing in first. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Honorable Gwen Knapp here to proceed with the swearing in of the new board members, township supervisors.
I'd like to, I'd like to open the floor for nominations for the chairman of the Board of Supervisors.
To swear in first. To do the swearing is in first. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, Chris, there's one, right? If she wants it.
Repeat after me. I, and state your name. I, Mary Ruth Lasota, do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend
That I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth
and the ordinances of West Goshen Township,
and the ordinances of West Goshen Township,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
I, Robin Stunbeck, do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend
And I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth
and the ordinances of West Goshen Township,
and the ordinances of West Goshen Township,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
You're on, Bill.
I
I, William R. Keenan,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth
and the ordinances of West Goshen Township,
and the ordinances of the West Goshen Township,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Repeat after me.
I, Nicholas Jacob Dominski,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth
and the ordinances of West Goshen Township,
and the ordinances of West Goshen Township,
and that I will discharge the duties of
discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
I'm told that I'm on now. I'd like to open the floor for nominations for Chairman of the Board of Supervisors.
I'd like to nominate Chris Pielli.
I'll second it.
We have a motion, two motions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Just want to say that it's a great honor to serve as chairman of this great township, and I also want to thank our previous chairmans in the past. We stand on their shoulders, and all the great things that we've done, I'd like to continue. I look to them for guidance and advice, and it's an honor. It's an honor to sit here where so many of others who worked so hard for this township, have worked so diligently, sat right here in this seat. So this is a tremendous honor. Having said that, I'd like to proceed to agenda item 4B and request nominations for vice chairman.
I move to nominate Robin Stunteback for Vice Chairman of West Goshen Township for the calendar year of 2018.
I'll second that.
We have first and second motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. Okay, I'd like to proceed to item 5 of the reorganization meeting. And we have some proposed township and staff appointments for 2018. And I'll be asking for a motion and a vote on the following appointments. We have for Township Manager, Secretary, Mr. Casey Lalonde. We have Finance Director and Treasurer, Gene Denham. Gene, are you here today? There you are. Thank you. And I'll just ask you if you could just stand so other folks could see. All these folks work very hard for the township, and they should be recognized. And we're really grateful to have them here. We have the Assistant Township Manager right in front of me, and Assistant Secretary, Mr. Derek Davis. Chief of Police, Chief Joseph Gleason. Public Works Director, Mr. J. David Woodward, Jr. Thank you. Township Engineer, Mr. Richard Craig. Assistant Finance Director, Human Resource Director, Jennifer Latzer. Hi, Jennifer. Zoning Officer, Mr. William Webb. Sewer Superintendent, Mr. Michael Maffa. Hi, Mike. Street Superintendent, Mr. Mark Bertolami. Park Superintendent, Doreen McClune. Hi, Doreen. Building and Code Official, Mr. John R. Beswick.
He's in Florida.
He's in Florida, lucky him. Building and Code Official, Mr. Edward Hunger. Mr. Hunger, how are you? Building and Code Official, Deputy Zoning Officer, Mr. Richard Craig. And Deputy Zoning Officer, Derek Davis. Deputy Zoning Officer, John Beswick. Deputy Tax Collector, Kimberly Green. Sure, hi, Corinne, how are you?
Hi.
Fire Marshal and Emergency Management Coordinator, Andrea Artesta. Assistant Fire Marshal, Michael D. McCarthy. Mike's not here today. All right, so I would ask for a motion to approve the following appointments that we've just read.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, folks. Thank you again. The second staff appointments, actually professional services appointments. I'd like to first start with the township solicitor position, Buckley, Bryan, McGuire, and Morris. Do you have any motions
I'll
on
make
the
the motion that they be selected as the solicitor.
Okay.
I'll second that.
I'd like to amend the motion to appoint them for 120 days to start January 1st, 2018, upon a selection process.
Okay. Do we have a second motion on that?
Second.
Let's start with the second motion. We had a motion for 120 days for this competitive selection process. We'll have a vote on that. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So I believe we have a 3-2. The second professional service position is consulting engineer. I believe that's Carroll Engineering Corporation. We have a motion for appointment for Carroll Engineering.
I move to appoint Carroll Engineering as our consulting engineer to the township, with the understanding that there will be a competitive selection process during the calendar year 2018 for external consulting services.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to number 6. What we have is specific terms in office at various boards and commissions. Most of these are volunteer positions. We always get a fantastic group of people that help us with our township business. So if you're here, please stand up to be recognized. And we'd like to thank you once again for volunteering. Parks and Recreation Board, we have Mr. Gerald Napacek. Mr. Napacek, thank you. We have Ms. Sarah Franco. Sarah's not here today. Eunice Alexander. I know Eunice is here. Hi, Eunice. Thank you. And Mary Lou Enox. Mary Lou here?
I think she left for Florida as well. She's a snowbird.
Well, I want to thank everyone on the Park and Recreation Board that's volunteering. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the Pension Committee. We have Mr. David Brune, Mr. Thomas A. Teneza, Walter Tompkins, Stephen McGann. I know Mr. McGann is here. Mr. McGann, thank you for volunteering. And Mr. Hugh Purnell is going to be the board liaison, the second year in a row. He's well qualified for that, being a certified public accountant. Next appointments are for Planning Commission. We have Mr. J. Terry Wildred, Mr. John Hellman. John, thank you. And Mr. Robert Holland. Finally, we have just one appointment necessary for this year. For Sewer Authority Board, we have Mr. Sean Walsh. I don't see Sean Healy here today. Thank you, Sean. Zoning Hearing Board, we have Mr. Joseph D. Phillips. Is Mr. D. Phillips here today? Mr. D. Phillips has been serving on the Zoning Hearing Board, I understand, since 1970.
49 years this year.
That's a lot of years of service to the township. We have Mr. Scott Cullinan. And we have Margie Swart as an alternate. Thank you, Margie. On the Vacancy Board, we have Mr. John Hellman. Thank you, John. Folks, if we could all give these folks a round of applause. Oh, we do. Thank you. We still have to do a motion and vote on those. So, may I have a motion to approve these
I'll make
appointments?
the motion.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 7 on the agenda item is approving the following depositories for 2018. Looks like I could read them all to you. We have TD Bank, we have BB&T, we have Wachovia Bank, we have DNB Bank, DNB First rather. As usual, we have Pennsylvania Local Government Investments Trust, Pennsylvania School District Liquid Asset Fund. We have the Citadel Federal Credit Union. We have National Penn Bank. We have First Resource Bank. We have Penn Liberty Bank. And we have Fulton Bank. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the following depositories for 2018.
Make a motion. Approve.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, number 8 on the agenda. Time for us to vote and recommend the Board of Auditors that the Township Finance Director and Manager bonds be set at $7.5 million for 2018. Do I have a motion to approve that?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, number 9 on the agenda is announcing the Board of Supervisors meetings going into 2018. All the meetings are going to be scheduled on a different day, folks. It's actually easier for our staff to react to the workload if we can push back one more week. Things like planning commission work sometimes comes before us, and we don't have a lot of turnaround time. So we've talked with the staff, and we've decided putting it back approximately a week would be very helpful to everyone around. So going into 2018, all meetings are scheduled on the third Tuesday of each month, and they will still be at 7 p.m. And they are going to be, as noted, January 2nd, today is the reorganization meeting. The next meeting is January 16th. Following that is February 20th, March 20th, April 17th, May 15th, June 19th, July 17th, August 21st, September 18th, October 16th, November 20th, and finally December 18th. Those are the Board of Supervisors meetings for the year of 2018. Moving on to number 10 on the list, we have the holiday schedule, and the office and the township will be closed on the following days. Monday, January 1st, that's New Year's Day. Monday, January 15th, Martin Luther King Day. Monday, February 19th, President's Day. Monday, May 28th, Memorial Day. Wednesday, July 4th, Independence Day. Monday, September 3rd, Labor Day. Monday, October 8th, Columbus Day. Monday, November 12th, Veterans Day. Thursday, November 22nd, Thanksgiving. And Friday, November 23rd, it's the day after Thanksgiving. Tuesday, December 25th, Christmas. I don't think we have to have a motion on that, that's just an announcement. So we'll move on to item number 11. On the agenda, possible adoption. Every year we have to establish fire response territories and emergency response territories by statute. We have to go through this every year. So item number 11 you'll see, resolution number 1-2018 is for fire response territories. So I'd like to entertain a motion from the board to approve that.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Purnell, thank you.
That it's the same basic outline as prior years. So just for clarifications.
That is correct. Thank you, Mr. Purnell. Thank you, Mr. Meehan. All those in favor?
Aye.
As Mr. Purnell correctly said, it's the same territorial guidelines we set every day. Every year. We have to do that by statute. We're going to do the same with Resolution 2-2018. We're going to adopt the Emergency Operations Plan for West Goshen Township.
We'll make that motion. We adopt that territory.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Purnell.
Got a
Mr.
question?
Meehan. Yes.
Hi, good evening. This emergency operations plan, can you explain exactly what that is?
Start over with Andrea Preston. She can provide some information.
Andrea, would you mind explaining that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Every municipality has to adopt a all hazards emergency operations plan every year, according to Title 35. And that's basically, it's not, doesn't go into any type of specifics. It's, like I said, it's an all hazard, whether it's weather or any type of hazardous materials, spills, anything like that.
Well, with regards to the emergency plan that you just outlined for the township, I'd like for the board to consider, I've been working with a group of people from multiple communities. We are trying to get an emergency response plan put through with the governor's office, and we're still trying to formulate what this looks like, but we're asking that townships across the line, especially with regards to this new hazard in the Sunoco pipeline, which it can be classified as a new hazard because this material has never been shipped this way. So we are attempting to get the governor's office to recognize this and work through PEMA to get a hazards and risk analysis done. So in conjunction with this emergency plan, I'd like for West Goshen Township to consider putting forth the request of PEMA to get this emergency evaluation done. Now, I know we have in our budget for the ability to pay for such a plan, but why should we pay for such a plan when PEMA can do it themselves? Now, the governor, during a meeting about a week or so ago, seemed uneducated when it came to understanding his role regarding Title 35. So 6 members from our organization met with him and hopefully made him understand what his role is. So what I'm asking for is for West Goshen to now consider pushing both on the governor's office and on PEMA to move forward with this plan or with this evaluation risk assessment so that members of the community can be better informed, and also members of local leadership can be better informed as well, because there's been a lot of misstatements. So I'd like to get you guys, you don't have to decide tonight, and I would be more than happy to come back with members from our organization and have more of a laid out plan to be considered for the next meeting.
Yeah, just for clarity, Tom, is this a plan that's already been created that's trying to be approved or
No, this-
statewide? Or are you talking about?
This is a risk analysis for a new hazard, which Mariner East is. And the governor has the ability to shut this pipeline project down or pull these permits because they fail to meet DEP requirements. And we are attempting to get his office to lean on and or have local governments lean on PEMA to call for such a risk assessment. Basically, Sunoco has one. They have to provide one to the federal government. This is also the same generic risk assessment that they've provided and allowed to be seen, but not copied. And not all questions were answered, and the time frame was limited by emergency service personnel to review such a plan. Now, our county level, along with our local level, has plans for general risk assessment, but the risk assessment for this is different. We need to know, we need to be more prepared. So what I'd like to do is to try to get the township to push for this, to get PEMA to recognize their responsibility, and also to maybe put pressure on the governor's office to do the same.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. Ms. Testing?
I just wanted to say just my opinion. We have to adopt an emergency operations plan, especially now when there's greater risk for disaster declarations. And if we don't have one in place, then we don't get reimbursed through the state. So just my suggestion is just adopt the current emergency operations plan, and then if at a later time you want to add something to do with the pipeline, we can always add an appendix and the number.
Thank you, Mr. Well, I believe we did have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And now we move on to number 13, Resolution 3, 2018, setting the township manager and assistant township manager salaries for the year of 2018. We have that resolution before us. a motion?
Did you kind of read the resolution?
We'll make motions and then we can take comments if you'd like. Okay, would that be okay?
Sure. I make a motion to accept the township manager and assistant manager salaries as stated for 2018.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brunel. Okay, any comments?
Hi, good evening. For the record, would you kindly read those resolutions?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
For those of you who don't have a copy, does everyone have a copy? It's up there, but if you don't. Township manager's 2018 salary shall be $153,463. Mr. Casey Lalonde. The assistant township manager's 2018 salary shall be $75,156. Mr. Derek Davis.
Also, for the record, in the minutes for this meeting, would you include those salary figures as part of the meeting minutes? Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other comments? I believe we have a motion and a second motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 14 has been tabled. Brings us to item number 15, opening the floor for public comment. Mr. White, Dr. White, pardon me.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Douglas White. On behalf of myself and family, Dr. Robert White, I want to congratulate and welcome Robin Slenbeck and Mary Arlo Soda to the Township Board of Supervisors. And Mary, this is for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. White. Really, really appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mary. You're welcome. And Robin, this is for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White. Any other public comments? Mrs. Ward.
Hi, good evening. Just a couple of clarifications on some business you already conducted this evening. Would you just confirm that the sewer superintendent, street superintendent, and park superintendents all report to the director of public works?
Thank you.
All three of them, okay? At a meeting previously, I believe it was a couple of years ago, the township manager announced that anytime he has an HR issue, he uses a labor firm. And I'm just curious when that labor firm would be appointed for next year.
It's on a very as-needed basis. We don't use them routinely.
Do you get board approval, or is board approval necessary before you hire a labor attorney?
No, I'm in charge of personnel, so the board has never had a problem with bills to be paid.
Okay, but they're not personnel though, correct?
I'm
So
sorry.
it's not
No,
personnel?
you misunderstand. I'm in charge of personnel for the
Oh,
township
okay,
employees.
all right.
So I have the authority to hire a labor attorney.
Okay, and at that same meeting, you also said I have a separate attorney for police issues. So is that the same process that takes place? So the board does not approve your selection of an attorney to handle police issues?
I know.
Okay. And of the banks, I know we have funds at the first 5 or 6 banks. This is item number 7 on the agenda. Would you confirm whether or not the township has funds at Citadel, Federal Credit Union, National Penn Bank, First Resource Bank?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. I'm curious as to why do we approve them as depositories if we don't currently have funds there?
It's to give the board some access to different banks, just in case. If the bank would fail, we can go on to another bank.
Okay, would you need board approval to deposit those funds in those banks?
To transfer the funds, not necessarily.
Okay. And then Mr. Kelly read off Penn Liberty Bank. However, on the agenda that I picked up this evening from the back of the room, and also the agenda I printed off the website, does not currently list Penn Liberty Bank.
Actually, Mr. Purnell brought that to my attention, Penn Liberty has been sold, so we struck it from the agenda.
Okay.
And my apologies about that, Mrs. Swerve, that was noted, and I just didn't see that notation.
Okay. And what is the amount of the bond to be set for the tax collector? You had mentioned the bonds for finance director and township manager.
Yeah, the tax collector, I have to consult with our insurance broker. They make a recommendation which we'll present to the tax board. The total assessed value is over $1.8 billion of assessed property. The total tax collectible is about $3.6 million. So we'll work with our insurance agent to come up with the appropriate.
Okay, and so that will cover both the deputy tax collector as well as the elected tax collector. Do any other employees in the township handle cash?
Our utility billing people downstairs.
Will you be bonding them as well?
They're not required to be bonded.
Okay. I've recently read a financial forensic audit, and it did recommend that any employees that handle cash it's their recommendation that they should be bonded. So I just asked for the board to consider that.
Mark, I don't mean to interrupt you, but could you send that along to us?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you. And also, I'm not sure, do the offices close on election day?
We do not.
Okay, great. That's all I have. Thank you, and I'm thrilled. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm State Representative Eric Rowe. I have the privilege of representing the lower two-thirds of West Goshen Township. I stand to convey my kind congratulations to Robin and to Mary. I want to congratulate you on becoming township supervisors. You have a wonderful township, and having formerly lived here, I just want to tell you, West Goshen doesn't need to be ranked by some magazine to prove to me that this is an amazing place to live and raise a family. And so for that reason, I'm proud to represent it in the Pennsylvania House, and I congratulate you both on becoming township supervisors.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eric Friedman, congratulations to Mrs. Soto and Ms. Dunderback. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors. Nice to see you here. Two quick things for your consideration. Thornbury Township, where I live, about 10 days or so ago, sent a letter to the governor regarding the arbitrary elimination of Sunoco's block valve from West Goshen Township. It's possible for people to feel differently about the situation of a block valve in a densely populated area right next to a firehouse, but clearly the thing was intended as a safety device. And the concern of Thornbury Township was that the PUC accepted what they call the arbitrary elimination of this valve without any consideration, apparently, of the safety impacts of that elimination. I wonder if I might get you a copy of that letter for your consideration. Okay, so if you can let me know the best way to send it, I would, if possible, like to get it to each of the supervisors for your awareness.
Send it through case.
Somebody else or me?
I will. Okay, thank you very much.
I did see that on the website, Mr. Freeman.
Yeah,
It is an area of great concern for us.
For us as well, and so I just, I want to make sure that each of the supervisors has a chance to see how Thornbury felt about that arbitrary elimination and the fact that the PUC apparently did not consider the safety impacts. Secondly, I made a request in 2017 for records of West Goshen Township having to do with correspondence between the township and Richard Kuprowitz, who the township hired as a consultant on the Mariner East project. And I got about 300 pages eventually of heavily redacted records, which really didn't pertain to the subject that was of interest to me, which was the analysis of the safety impacts of a hazardous, highly volatile liquids pipeline in a densely populated area. Township, the previous board, expended an enormous amount of taxpayer money to prevent the release of these records. And I would suggest to this newly constituted board that this is correspondence having to do with the safety impacts of this proposed project in West Goshen. It's of enormous public interest, in my opinion, and I'd like to make a request directly to this newly constituted board that those records be released in their entirety so that they can be in the public domain, which is where I think they belong. It may be that the Kuprowitz reports are really no longer valid. I know that they relied specifically on the block valve that was proposed for West Goshen, but be that as it may, I think that the correspondence that I was seeking was and remains of great public interest. That's something that you could deal with tonight if you choose, but if not, I would like to at least have presented my request to you for the release of those records.
Thank you, Mr. Ferricki.
Thank you, Mr.
Any other public comments? Mr. Casey? And I'm sorry, I'll get you next.
It's all right.
I'll be brief. I was going to make I was going to read something, a statement, but I've chosen not to, and it involves some of the appointments for this evening, and because of this small issue that I'm having, it's going to be very difficult for me to formulate my my letter. So I sent. So I want to reserve and be able to do this at the next township meeting, to be able to read this in its entirety. But I had sent a right to know request asking for general billing statements regarding our solicitor's office in West Goshen Township for its time period from 1/1/16 to 12/1/17. And I followed that up about a week or so later with a secondary request. And it was handled separately, asking for other additional dates from 2015. So what I need is for I need clarification and to help me to be able to formulate this letter. The first request that I received came back with a lot of pages, a lot of work was put into it. The first date that appears for the billing was 3/3/2016. So I looked through the billing, and there was also other dates that were missing in the middle. So I followed up and I said to Mr. Lalonde, there seem to be some documents missing. The dates are 1/1/16 to 3/2/16, 10/22/16 to 1/3/17, and 7/1/17 to 12/1/17. And I also explained that understanding the timing and the end of year, that October and November may not have been available at the time of my request. So if it's not, I understand. The problem that I'm having now is the secondary request was granted, but the information's different. And so the first item on this one is 3/3/2016, where somebody met with Kristen Camp regarding West Goshen Sewer Authority. But when I look over here onto the second batch of information, the first date was 12/30/2015, and it goes through January, February, and into March. The March information is different. So what I'm concerned is that I never received...
Two different matters, two different bills.
I never received the information that I originally requested. Now, we've had this issue in the past, and I had legal matter before the township. So I have two options. One is to come here tonight and ask that I be given the information that I requested originally, or go through a lengthy appeals process, which will cost, Lord knows how much. I still don't, and I can't even, and part of my request was looking for an accounting of all the costing involved with my last issue regarding right to know requests. So what I'm asking for, and I can provide this to the board this evening, just so you can see the discrepancies. So it's going to be very difficult for me to formulate my response and what I wanted to read this evening if I don't get what I need for my original request. So can I please get what I'm asking for is before we have to go through an appeals process that I'm more than willing to do.
So I have a suggestion. Why don't you give us some of this information? We could just give us a chance to look at it and see. There might be an explanation we can come back with. And,
Mr. Pielli, if I can, we're not withholding anything. There's a
I understand.
a document that is a public record, and we tried to be responsive. Mr. Lalonde asked our office to provide the billing. I have a general billing number that covers, like, sometimes right to know requests don't lead to anything further, and so I just put it on the general bill. If it then is going to lead to more, at some point in time I decided that I need my own file for that, and so I opened a new file with a new billing number. And so some of the date discrepancies were I didn't open a new file for Mr. Casey's right to know request until later in the process. So again, Mr. Jennings, my associate, spent a lot of time to make sure that we were being responsive to this request. And we believe we have given all the documents that are responsive. We're not trying to hide anything.
Sure, and I hope I didn't imply anything like that.
No, I just wanted you to understand that we really did spend time to try to reply, and I think Mr.
But that wasn't my request. But my request was not of the solicitor's office. My request was of township records regarding all billing that came through the township, not what came from the solicitor. So we were provided with those bills, and then we paid them. That's what I wanted to see. So I was not asking the solicitor to do any work or to provide information to me, because that's the kind of, regarding, discrepancies in information given. I want to see what the township received in its inbox and what was paid out. That's what I was asking for. And what I just provided tonight clearly show that there's, the first request I received A, B, and C. The second I received some of A, B, and C, but also D, E, and F. And so it's very difficult for me to formulate my response if I don't have the information that I asked for originally. So I asked for the township documents, not from the solicitor. I appreciate their efforts, but I wanted to know what was provided to the township and what was paid out from the township. That's what my request was for, and it also was what, regarding my case from 2016.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casey. We'll take that under advisement. Any other public comments? Hi. Could you-
I'm Erin Morelli. I just want to take a moment to congratulate Mary and Robin, and just to remind you guys that we worked hard in getting you elected, and we're very happy. But the main reason is due to the Sunoco pipeline, which I'm sure you are aware. So now that the injunction has been lifted, we're just hoping that you will do everything in your power and consider other ways to protect our community, possibly including enforcing our zoning laws here in West Goshen. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McBride. Anyone else?
I apologize. I had this on my list of questions earlier. I know you mentioned that you would be putting out a bid for a consulting engineer in due time. And before you do that, I ask that you evaluate the need for a consulting engineer. I know in the past that it's been stated that we are very fortunate to have Mr. Craig's services. And I believe, I heard we are one of maybe only 2 or 3 other municipalities in Chester County to have our own staff engineer. And I do realize how lucky we are to have his services. So that leads me to question why the need for a consulting engineer when we have a staff engineer. And I have brought that up at a previous meeting, but until I looked at our Citizens Transparency website, we had paid our consulting engineer $235,500 in 2017. I'm not sure that was year end, that was at least through maybe mid-December. However, when the breakdown of those expenses, only about $20,000 of the $235,500 were actually for contractual engineering or traffic signal services. We have a total of $42,000 for operating expenses for the parks, and 170, let's call it 174,000 for road construction materials. And I'm either, I'm just wondering why a consulting engineer, we're pulling his payments out of the road construction account for materials. So anyway, I just ask that you really evaluate whether or not we need to be putting that position even out for bid. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Swart. Following up on that just quickly, I wanted to point out that the selection process that we're proposing and that has been approved today about the professional services is what we believe to be a process that would be fair to the taxpayers. Every so often, we feel that it's necessary that these type of positions should be put out for a selective, competitive type process in order to get the best services for our township residents for the best price. I feel it's a responsibility. I myself have been saying that for a couple of years. I don't want to give anyone the impression in any way that we're disappointed or let down by the services that we did have. I'm always open to hear about ways of saving. That's something that's very important to us, and we have to be fiscally responsible. We're facing a lot of different challenges fiscally going forward. But for the record, I do want to say that the services that we have been receiving, in my opinion, from what I've seen for 2 years, have been services that are good services. It's just the process itself that should happen. You have a firm for so many years, you owe it to the taxpayers to go out and to competitively look around, get the best bang for the buck for the taxpayers. That's all. To me, it's a due diligence thing, and I think most of us agree on that. So having said that, any other comments? No? Well, then I make a motion to adjourn. Well, Dr. White. Got it right under the wire there, Doctor. I was about to lay down the gavel.
I am Doug White. I do agree with the competitive process also. Please keep in mind, Buckley Bryan is very familiar with our situations and our township. So I hope Buckley Bryan gets appointed and they work with the township best they can. Because they're very, they know our stuff, that what we face, they've been around. Being township solicitor for many years isn't necessarily a bad thing, but again, we need to look out for our taxpayers too.
Thank you, Doctor. Any other public comments?
I'll make the motion, we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.